Thank you so much to Maddie, our Vice President of Communications for Phi Theta Kappa Omicron Iota chapter here at Schoolcraft College. We're extremely excited to have you guys with us today. And again, I want to thank you guys for being here because, as we said, the most important thing for us is to have you guys have the opportunity to have the blueprint that you need to go down that pathway of success. The only way you will be able to do that is to be able to access the viable and necessary resources that Schoolcraft provides here. So without further ado, I would like to welcome Lisa Broker, who is not, I think Lisa's not going to be here. So it's going to be Tracy Kemp, our scholarship coordinator, who is going to be so gracious enough to come up and share information with you guys regarding financial aid. So thank you so much, Tracy.
My name is Tracy, and I am the Scholarship Program Associate in Financial Aid, and I'm going to show you how to access the opportunities we have here at Schoolcraft College. There are many scholarships that, frankly, students just aren't aware of. Now, this is our home page. You can get to the scholarship area one of two ways. You can go to Admissions and Aid right here. Follow down. Here is financial aid. You can view the scholarships. This is just a sampling in this area, and you apply, online right here. It's a general application, and once you fill out that general application, other opportunities that may be applicable to you will show up. You can also access the scholarship site here in the A to Z index. If you click there, go down to F for financial aid. This brings up the financial aid page. Scroll down, sources of aid, apply for scholarships, and basically you come back to the same page and you can apply right here. Your login credentials are going to be the login credentials, your single sign-on for your Ocelot access. Let's see. So, most scholarships require that you have a completed FAFSA on file. The FAFSA now opens October 1 of every year, and so the 2022-23 opened October 1, uses the 2020 taxes, and you can fill that out anytime now. And it's good to have it completed by March 1st in order to be eligible for Michigan awards. There is a Michigan competitive scholarship that is need-based as well as merit-based. So there's a separate Michigan application to complete as well as the FAFSA. Okay, we did that. Did I say that your FAFSA needs to be filed by March 1st in order to be eligible for the Michigan Awards? Okay. You complete your application and you submit it at the bottom, and then some other recommended opportunities once with your completed scholarship will come up that perhaps you are eligible for. These may have additional questions, they may have a short essay, but follow through and then submit completely. We have Schoolcraft Foundation scholarships. There are honors program scholarships, ambassador program. The newspaper staff has a scholarship, the Phi Theta Kappa scholarship, and then the Office of Financial Aid. We have other scholarships, need-based scholarships. They do require the FAFSA. We have the SC Educational Grant, the Ocelot Book Fund, Alternative Route to Teacher Certification, the Metro Detroit Area Culinary Scholarship, and a Return to Learn scholarship. There are also some private scholarship opportunities. There is a Fast Web, Scholarship America, Many times I like to tell students that there are several local scholarships. Community civic organizations like the VFW halls, the Lions Club, the Moose Lodge. School districts have an educational foundation scholarship, credit unions, churches. There really are a lot available. Just Google them. In all honesty, it's amazing how many scholarships don't get applied for. And the opportunities out there, just look for them. Google even your interests. Scholarship for golfers, scholarship for dog lovers. It's really amazing. Let's see. And the Michigan scholarships, you do have to be a resident of Michigan. Now, how you will know if you're awarded a scholarship will be through your Schoolcraft email. That is how we do all of our communication with you. So we really recommend checking your Schoolcraft email regularly. There is also a YouTube channel for federal student aid. I wish this was bigger, but there's a YouTube for just federal student aid, giving you tips on what to do, how to apply, and there is no cost for completing a FAFSA. It's really recommended that you do it. We can take a look at the application and see if you have any questions, and we do have some financial aid handouts for you if you would like. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tracy.
Next, please welcome Carol Blooms, the Director of Annual Giving and Scholarship Administration from the Foundation, who will share expert advice on how to polish and perfect your scholarship application and essays. We ask that you please hold your questions until the following Q&A to follow. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my name is Carol Booms, and I am the Director of Annual Giving and Scholarship Administration for the Schoolcraft College Foundation. And I'm here today to talk with you about our scholarships. It's an incredibly important resource for the students here on Schoolcraft's campus, and so I wanted to give you some details on about our scholarship funds as well as how to apply for them. So I'm going to start by just referencing how we come about getting our scholarships. And each of our scholarships are set up by an individual donor. And so that donor could be an individual, a family, it could be a corporation, it could be a local business here in the community, or it could be a community organization like a Rotary Club. So we work with them directly to establish their fund. We go through and have them tell us about what it is that they want to affect on campus for the students. It could be that they're interested in a particular major, or that they're interested in a student who has a particular type of financial need. So there's a really broad range of things, and depending on what they choose, they can set up their fund to reflect the things that they want to help change. And so for many students, that's a combination of, it could be academic achievement, it could be financial need, it could be pursuing a certain degree, it could be helping international students, or students that aren't necessarily able to get other funding through the system. A lot of questions that I get are students who haven't filled or don't fill out the FAFSA. And the question is, can they still apply? And the answer is absolutely yes. And so we encourage all students to take the opportunity to go through, because we have so many different funds. You'll never know where you might match, and I'll explain how our system does that in a minute. The review process is what I want to touch on next. So the people come in, they set up the funds, and then you fill out an application and something happens with it. So what is it that happens? The most important thing for students to know is that there are real people involved in the process. Because our funds are set up by individual donors, that means that they can choose to be involved in the review process. So the review process means that it takes the information that you've provided in your application, and they go through, and the applications that rise to the top in terms of best meeting the criteria can go through and be reviewed. When you write your essay, which is something we'll talk about a little bit more, there are actual individuals who are sitting there and reading your essay. And so while some students may think that there's just this computer system that figures it all out and goes through and makes a magic selection, that's not how it happens. There are real people who are involved in the process who really care about what you're writing and the effort that you put into your application. And so we've got real people involved, and that leads to the essay. Your essay is the story that you're going to tell about yourself. And that's really important because oftentimes if you don't take the time to think about what you want to say, or why your story is important, or why you think you should receive those scholarship funds, taking the time to write, and as you've gotten other information about the importance of the resources that are available to help you write on campus, proofing and editing and sharing with other people what it is that you're writing, and taking the time to go through and really think about it. You want to make sure that you're making an impression. We talk a lot about first impressions, whether you're going for an interview, you're going for a class, whatever it happens to be that you're doing. Your essay is your first impression for the committees or the individuals who are looking at your scholarship. And so you're going to want to make sure that when they read it, they look at it and you stand out from the other people who may have submitted an essay. And we get a lot of questions from people about, well, how do I stand out? Being genuine, honestly telling your story, sharing the circumstances that you're in. If the scholarship asks you to explain why or how you have financial need, explaining your family situation, going through and sharing information about circumstances that may be affecting your ability to stay in school. All of these things can make a difference to somebody who's reading your essay and who's making the decision on whether or not you're going to receive that award. And so we want to go through and encourage all the students first to apply, but then also to take your time. A lot of short essays, when you write 1 or 2 sentences, most often I can tell you from experience that those are the essays that may not be considered. But if you take the time to write a thoughtful paragraph, that really could tell your story or touch someone, that's going to be the thing that's important. And then asking for help, asking for assistance with your essay, whether that's through the library and through learning resources, or whether it's through a friend or a family member. Going through and asking somebody just to take an extra look at your essay is always a really helpful thing to do. We all like to think that we can do everything perfectly, but when you're telling your story and you have one chance to do it, you want to make sure that you try to do the best that you can. We talked about proofing and editing. We talked about the essay. And so now I'm going to talk a little bit about the mechanics of how it works and how the foundation scholarships might be different from academic scholarships or other information that you find on the financial aid page. Scholarships for the foundation all have criteria, and they all require that you write an essay. What you might find in other applications that are online, since we all use the same system, is that you'll find that there isn't an essay that's required, so you don't have to go through and do that. But all of the foundation scholarships that you'll find right on the admissions and aid page, you'll see under scholarships where you click apply now, all the scholarships within the college go through that same portal. So that same application is used no matter what scholarship you're applying for, but what you'll find is that the questions can be different. So if you're going through and filling out an application for a foundation scholarship, the system is going to automatically prompt you to answer questions. And you'll find that the more questions that you answer, oftentimes the more it's going to push you to answer even more questions. And the reason that that happens is because the system can intuitively go through and look at what you're answering and say, hey, they mentioned this in one of their answers. Let's say it's something about English. If the system picks up that English is mentioned, then it may say, oh, all right, we have all of these scholarships, all have something to do with English, and we're going to start sorting and matching you with the best possible scholarships within the system. So there is automation that happens on that end of it. As you drill down into the application, then it's going to get more specific. And so for whatever questions you're being asked, answering them to the best of your ability and going through and making sure that you don't stop at any point and just stop answering them because you don't feel like maybe you're getting somewhere. The system is built so the more questions that you answer, the more chances you have of getting more matches for your scholarships. And so really that's what we want students to have, is the best chance possible to have the system look at all of the different things that you might be eligible for. Questions that might be asked are you involved in a sport? Are you involved in a student activity? Whatever that question happens to be, there's a reason that it's there. It's there to help move you forward through the process and to match you with more scholarships. So after all your questions are answered and everything happens, we're now looking at the fall 2022 scholarship cycle. And that is going to open on February the 2nd of 2022. That means that all of the applications start over. So basically, this is your clean slate to go through and file your application for the upcoming year. In February, let's say you go through and you fill out that application and you get it done right away. That application is then good for the entire academic year. For the foundation scholarships, you do not have to go back in and apply a second time. What that means is that, let's say a student is selected to receive a scholarship, and we have a committee that goes through and makes a selection, and they pick 3 candidates. So you have your first candidate who's going to be the awardee, and then we have a second and a third. If that student goes through the semester and at any point they either stop meeting the criteria for the scholarship, or they have something happen and they don't attend school, they withdraw, that award doesn't disappear. That award actually can come back into the system and be re-awarded. And so I like to think of it as kind of an open door where we have scholarships that are constantly coming in and going out. So we don't ever put a stop on it unless an award is finalized and you can look in the system and see that an end date has been put on it. Start dates and end dates, you'll see all the start dates begin February 2nd. But the end dates are the way that when you're going back into the system to check on something to see if it's been awarded, that end date is going to tell you if that scholarship is still open. If it's showing that there is no end date and that it's still open, it means those dollars are still available. So there still is a chance that you're in that pool. And so you'll find that throughout the semester, we can be sending out notifications for awards. The majority of our awards are notified between July and August. The selection process starts in May, but you'll start seeing the money go to your account if you've received an award during that July and August time period before school starts. if at any time we have a scholarship that comes open and you were the student that was next in line to receive it, you could be getting a notice in the middle of the semester that you just received a scholarship award. And so checking your Schoolcraft email account is a really important thing to do throughout the semester, because it's never just a one and done where there's a finite window that's opened and closed. We want to be able to provide students with the best possible chance of receiving those dollars, and we want to make sure as a foundation that we're stewarding our donors' dollars and making sure that they get paid out in full every academic year. And so our intention is to go through and to help as many students as we possibly can. In an average academic year, that can be anywhere between 250 to 300 students. During COVID, we saw upward of 500 students receiving assistance. And so oftentimes the foundation has the flexibility to step in and provide awards. You may be familiar with the distance learning awards that we had. And those were awards that were made possible because donors came forward during COVID, and they said, how can we help the students right now who are transitioning from classroom to online learning? And so they said, well, we can look at doing distance learning scholarships for everybody who's going to go through and be enrolled through a distance learning course. This is the first time that they're going through that. And so those types of opportunities do come up with the foundation. And so we like to be able to be proactive and responsive to the needs of the students and the things that go on within the college community. I'll mention again about your Schoolcraft email, checking your account, making sure that you check the spam folder. I hear from students all the time, sometimes they're just not certain where the communication is coming from. The foundation works within the Schoolcraft email system, so we are a legitimate email. It comes from your notification will come from a schoolcraft.edu address, and so making sure that your spam folder, if for whatever reason you've set something up to tag a certain word and filter it out, you'll want to go back and look at that, because we want to make sure that you receive notification, that you know where to go in your account. In addition to that email, the other important place for you to look when you're online and you're in your portal is that you're going to go through and you have the tabs that show your opportunities online. That opportunities tab, when there's something there, if you're just like jotting in really quick and you just want to go through and see, what's in my system, what's on my file today, you'll notice up at the top that that if there's a notice for you, there will be a red circle with a number in it. And that tells you the number of notifications that are waiting for you. And those notifications can be award notifications. They can also be notifications that you filled out the application, but additional paperwork is needed. So going through and looking at those notifications and knowing that that red circle is a signal for you to go through and take a look at your account. If there is an award that's on your account, then that's going to take you to the next step in the process, and that is accepting the award. When you go into the system, it's going to prompt you to accept the award, and there's also an opportunity for you to decline the award. And the reason that I would bring that up is because oftentimes students go through and have a number of different types of financial aid that they're receiving. It could be through FAFSA. It could be the federal money that's coming in that's being applied to your account. Sometimes private scholarships, which is what the foundation scholarships are, they can go through and offset the amount of your financial aid. And so we don't ever want a student to have reduced financial aid. We want you to be able to make use of all the resources that are at your disposal. So if you're looking at your aid and you're in a situation where you need to speak with the financial aid office, you can always come back, and if they tell you that this award that you're going to receive from us is going to do X, Y, and Z to your account, you can simply go in and you can decline the award. And what declining the award does is something that's really important. It frees up that money for the next student who's in line waiting for assistance. So if your tuition was covered by the federal aid or by whatever sources that you may have had, it's going to go through and allow us to know for a fact that in the system there was a reason that you declined that award, and that we can then go on to the next student and help them. And so that's an important function. And you can always call the foundation or the financial aid office and ask about, how is this going to impact me? What does this look like? If you're not impacted by FAFSA or going through and receiving those types of aid, you don't need to worry about it. 99.9% of the time, people go through and click the accept button, and then what's important is what happens next. Once you click accept for a foundation scholarship, you're going to be asked to do one thing. You're going to go through and you're going to write a thank you letter to the donor of your scholarship. So there are instructions within the portal that tell you how to do that. It's going to give you a suggestion on who to address it to based on the award you received. And then basically you're just going through and conveying your genuine thanks for receiving the award. We like to encourage students to tell the donors how that award has impacted their life. Sometimes it allows students to stay in school for that semester. It has a dramatic impact. It also allows students to focus more on their work. They may go through and it may just free up enough so they can cut back a couple hours at work and they're able to focus on their studies more. Any way that that scholarship helps you achieve your academic goal is something that you want to be able to share in that letter of thanks to the donor. And so when you write that letter, you can go through and you can write it in any format. Most often we see people going through and just using a Word file, which is absolutely fine. You can also submit a PDF file. Again, the instructions will tell you what you can submit. One little tip that I'll give you that is a good one to have is just to make sure that there are no characters or letter in the titles of your files. When we do put that in there as information, but sometimes people will go through and you'll just tag the date that you filled out your application, and so you put the date in there, and then all of a sudden you can't upload it into the system, and it's because the numbers aren't being accepted within the file name. And so you'll want to make sure that you keep it simple. I often suggest that people just use their first initial and their last name. They can put the name of the scholarship if they want to, but that record is attached to your record, so we'll know exactly who it's from and what it's for. So going through and making sure that you submit your thank you letters. Something that we started doing last year was also asking students to submit a short video. And that can be anywhere between 30 seconds to a minute and a half. And it's a link that we send to you directly to your Schoolcraft email account. And you can record a video from your laptop, from any electronic device. So most people do it from their cell phone. Again, we provide instructions that go through and tell you to make sure that you have a good visual on your camera, that your audio is strong, and when you record that thank you, you're doing the same thing that you're doing in your letter. You're just taking the opportunity in person to thank the donor and tell them how much it's meant to you to receive that award. What we do is then take that video and it's actually sent directly to the people who are involved in your scholarship. So it could be the individual donor. So you are getting the chance to one-on-one through that video tell the donor about yourself and say thank you. So the reactions that we get to see on this end is the donors feel really connected and really appreciate hearing from students that they've been helped, and that the work that they've done is meaningful, and that they've made the impact that they wanted to make here at Schoolcraft for the students, and that they've gone through and helped them. Each year we go through and help donors go through and provide students with more than $250,000 in funding. And so that's no small number. And every year, if I had to guess, we add between 10 to 15 scholarship funds. So if we have 150 funds and we're adding those, that means every year the foundation is working to build opportunity for students to get more support. And so the more that we can share our student stories, the more donors that we can tell stories, hopefully the more donations that we'll receive and the more gifts will come to support student success at Schoolcraft. And so that's kind of foundation scholarships in a nutshell. Again, taking your time to apply, making sure that you ask questions when you need to. Foundation staff is always available to help with any of the process. The financial aid and the other resources are available to you as well. We want you to be able to ask questions. We want to be able to match you with funding. And so we want you to take these opportunities. And so my final advice would be to go through and make sure that you take the time to apply, that you make it a priority, because there is funding available and we want to help as many students as possible, and we certainly hope that you'll be one of the applications that we see for fall 2022.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Carol. So now we would like to open the floor to any questions that attendees might have. Personally, I do have a few questions for you, if you don't mind.
Great.
One question that I have from my experience applying for foundation scholarships is that, like you said, there's a matching process, right? It asks you questions about athletics, extracurriculars, your major. Some of the extracurriculars that I'm personally involved in don't necessarily match up with my major, which is in science. I've been involved with journalistic type extracurriculars, academic success type extracurriculars with Phi Theta Kappa. So what I've noticed is that certain scholarships, the criteria that they have, sometimes they are geared towards specific majors based on those interests. Are students still able to apply, first of all, and to be considered if they don't match the criteria exactly?
Their scholarships range in how the donors set them up. And so what might be flexible within one scholarship may not be flexible within another. And I'll give you an example. Let's say somebody goes through and they set up a scholarship in the sciences, and they want students to have, let's say, certain experience. Let's say it's with a science club. The donor can establish that criteria and say, either I want this specific thing, like I want to see that this student is doing this very specific activity, or they can leave it more general to say, I just want to make sure that the student is involved. So that leeway is established by the donor. So as a student, when the foundation is working with the donor to go through and award the scholarship, let's say one of the things that they've put in place is that the grade point average needs to be a 2.5 or greater. So if that average is 2.5, you have the whole range up to students who have a 4 point. And scholarships aren't necessarily set up only to reward academic excellence. So our donors could go through and say, I want the student who's got the best blend of these things. I want to look at their academic accomplishments. I want to make sure that they're doing well, but I want to see that they're balanced and that they're also participating in college life. that they're going through and they have these other types of activities going on. And so a student can always be considered. And the reason that I mentioned earlier about the fact that the questions that you answer can lead to more things, there may be a scholarship, if you've gone through and read everything, there may be a scholarship that might not be top of mind for you that contains something that you did that you may not even know that that one was available for you. And so our job is to make sure the system and all of those answers are helping us figure out what is it that you match to best and what is it that you're going to match to down the road so you can go through and have the best chance of being funded. So it's not that, everything is, you have to have a 4-point, you have to have this, you have to have that. There are scholarships that are like that, but the majority of scholarships that we have actually entail a little bit more flexibility and thought. And so that's why I encourage students to tell their story and to answer as many questions as they can, because that's really going to paint the broad picture of what it is that the student looks like to the donor. That's your opportunity to make your impression. So if you take the time to answer those questions, the donor's going to be able to see on their end what they feel like is the best fit.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
The other question that I have, you mentioned that there's a window for most scholarships where they open and they close.
Yes.
What advice do you have for students that might be applying for the first time or that struggle with time management to stay on top of those deadlines?
Sure. When we go through and the system opens on February 2nd, it doesn't mean that on February 3rd we're going through and we're going through applications and getting them out to the donors. We give students the window up until the May time frame to apply. And the reason that we do that is because we want students to be able to take the time. Sometimes students will get into the system and have questions. And so as much as you would like to go through and have that application done by midnight on that very first day, there isn't any reason for you to necessarily do that. If you need to stop your application and then come back into it and complete it, in the system it will stay in draft form, so you can come back to it and make changes at any time before you hit the submit button. When you take the time to do that, the chances are that you'll produce a better application. And so although we encourage students to prepare their essay in advance, you can get into the system and start to look at what the questions are, and you can go through and start writing right then. But if you know in advance that you're going to have to write an essay, you may want to go through over Christmas break, and you may want to go through during the holidays, and maybe start making a bullet point list of some of the things that you would include in your essay, things that are top of mind for you in your story. Maybe it is that family situation, whatever it happens to be that you want to convey to the donor about why you're the best candidate for the award. Taking that time in the beginning is really going to help you, and not rushing it. It sounds funny, but it's actually not. There are students who go through and get in there, and sometimes they are doing it at the last minute, and they'll write just a quick note about the fact that they need money. And when you're asked to explain your financial need, there's usually more to it. Sure, we all need money. School is expensive for everyone, and everyone's trying to figure out a way to fund it. But the reality is that if you can share why it's important that you receive this support, that's going to help the donor see what the need is for you as an individual. And so it's not just about some mass system of giving out awards to everyone. It really is looking at the individual students at Schoolcraft and the support that they need, and trying to connect what the donors would like to accomplish with what the students need. And so
So you would say the quality of the application is better than the quantity that you fill out then?
Absolutely. You have one application that you're filling out. And so if there, and I should say, for the foundation scholarships, you have one application. There are the other applications throughout the school. Let's say there's an academic department that has a scholarship. This is where they may have other questions that they ask you, and other things that they're asking you to provide in terms of information. And the way that we distinguish the two is that when you go through and you fill out this application and the scholarship and you answer as many questions as you can, we call that matching. So the scholarship is using the system plus all your answers to go through and try to put together that picture that we're going to use to match you to a scholarship. The other ones are called apply to. And what apply to means is that you're actually going to a specific form for an academic department or through financial aid, and you're filling out that specific form. And so those don't necessarily ask for the types of things that the foundation may ask for. They could be asking for something completely different. And so we like to use the matching system because that helps us reach more students. And then within the other types of aid, because they could have completely different criteria than we have at all, that's where the applied tos are very specific questions. It could be that the math department is giving out a specific scholarship, so the math faculty are going to ask very specific questions. They're also going to tell you that the math department has this scholarship available for you to apply for, and they may have a written application, they may have an online application. But in general, financial aid, when I mentioned the admissions and aid page on the website, that is where you're going to find all of the information about all of those different types of scholarships. And so I really encourage students to use that as a starting point. And then just asking a lot of questions. We all know that, as students come in and are brand new, they may not often know the questions to ask. And so we have an email address at the foundation, that's scholarships@schoolcraft.edu. And anybody can send an email to that scholarship, and we will either put you in touch with the right person or get your question answered so we can go through and help you through the process. And so we work with all of the other departments on campus to make sure that we're providing students with as much opportunity to learn about the things that they can apply for. And so we encourage you to ask a lot of questions.
Okay. What about for students that might not know what to ask? What do you feel are some of the smartest questions to be asked of the foundation?
I think the simplest question that they can ask is, how do I apply? And getting the application completed is the first step in doing anything. Without that application, you're not going to be able to go to the next part of the step, which is being considered in the pool of applicants. I always feel sad when I see students who got into the draft stage and then for some reason they stopped and they didn't continue. And I'm sure that there's a lot of reasons for that, but if you get stuck, I would tell a new student to call us and ask. Somebody is always willing to be here to help at Schoolcraft. And, it may not be that you ask the foundation, it may be that you ask the financial aid office, and we all have the same goal. We want you to be successful. We want to get you to the end goal, which is having that submitted application that can be considered. And so, being able to make a phone call or send an email that say, I don't even know what to do, is okay. It's okay to tell us that you're lost and that you need our help getting through the process. And so we're always happy to do that. And so, in going through, I think persistence is key. And it can be overwhelming and it can be frustrating, but there's always a point of help for you here at Schoolcraft. And so there's always some way that we can go through and figure out what it is we need to do to help you with that next step. And so I would encourage students to just even, raise your hand and say you don't know. And we'll be glad to help.
Perfect, thank you. The last question I have for you, in general, when you talk about the selection committees or the donors that select candidates to receive the scholarships, what feedback do you receive most often from donors and those committees that select students about the do's and don'ts and what they're doing right versus other students?
I think donors most often come back to us and comment on the essays. It really comes down to, did the student take the time to write the essay? Were there mistakes in it? Grammar and spelling do count. Sometimes we get very casual with our communication. You're writing a story. You're writing the story about why you need help with this scholarship. And so being as genuine as you can. Students sometimes will go through, and if they've provided thoughtful information to the donor, we will get comments about, wow, those stories really moved me, or I was inspired that the student is trying so hard. Maybe the student has shared that they're struggling academically and financially, and the donor really wants to be able to help them. So if the scholarship was set up in a way that enables the donor to go through and select that student, then they can go through and do that. So the essay allows the donor to really see you as a student. And so, not that we all have to be perfect story writers, but be genuine about what you're writing and just be honest about whatever it is that you're seeking. And if it's asking you to explain your academic goals, all of us don't know, perfectly. We don't all have a perfect path about we're going to do A, B, and C, and this is exactly what we're doing. Donors understand that college is an experience and that you're going to go through and have changes through your time here. So it's okay to say you're exploring different degrees. If the scholarship itself is for a science major, then you have to be a science major. But if somebody has set up a scholarship fund and their intent is to go through and to help a student begin to pursue their career in higher ed and go through and to take that next step to be able to achieve their associate's degree or a certificate program, or whatever your academic goal happens to be, it's okay to share that and to say, right now, this is what I'm looking at doing. Because a lot of times the majority of the scholarships will have the opportunity for them to consider students who are doing a lot of different things, especially within the liberal arts or other places. Everything isn't written in stone. And so we offer a broad range of scholarships for students who are just starting out, who just need a leg up to get their foot in the door, to students who are applying for scholarships that are based on academic excellence and what they've achieved. And so we really do have something for everybody. And so I always encourage students not to self-select out of the process. Just because you don't have a certain grade point average doesn't mean that there's not a scholarship that considers your grade point average. And so there can be a wide range of things. So looking at the criteria and knowing that we may have something that you're not thinking about is why we want to get each student to that submit button and to be able to complete that application and have the information and have the opportunity to apply.
Perfect. Thank you so much for explaining that. Todd, do you have any questions? Anyone else? Okay. Well, first, I want to thank you for being a part of the Leaders Emerging Through Financial Literacy Scholarship Workshop. Phi Theta Kappa values you deeply, and we couldn't have made this possible without you. So thank you so much for your time and for doing this.
You're very welcome, and again, I encourage all the students to ask a lot of questions and certainly fill out that application for fall 2022.
Our final speaker for Learning Support Services is Academic Success Coach Sherry Bailey, who will now briefly share a few tips on how successfully to edit your essays. Following these tips, you will have an opportunity to navigate the scholarship portal and begin your application today. With the assistance of our team, members, and specialists here with us today if you choose.
Thank you so much.
Exactly what is all encompassed in that. A lot of the things we were talking about already, a lot of the things they've already shared with you, a lot of the things are going to be familiar with what they've told you, but they're all very important. They're all very important. So what is a scholarship essay? Everybody keeps saying, you got to write one, you got to write one. Okay, so what is it? Well, basically, it provides information about yourself, provides information about you as the candidate. It starts off with your name, why you're applying for whatever scholarship the name is. It's part of an initial screening process. So it's part of you do your application, you do your scholarship essay as well. It gives the committee an insight into who you are, okay? And it's a way to convince them that you deserve the scholarship. It's a way to write something compelling that will grab their attention and make them understand why this is important for you and how you can benefit from this scholarship. So what are they looking for when you write your scholarship? They're looking for your specific skills. What skills, what qualities, what values, what interests do you have? How have you developed them over your years of study, over your short time at Schoolcraft, over your lifetime, over previous jobs? Perhaps you're returning to another work out of the workforce, returning to school again or for the first time. And so they're looking for you to share some of those ideas with them. They want to know how this is going to be relevant to you in the future. So how important is this to you? It's not just, hey, I'd like your money, please. Okay. It's a lot more than that. Okay. I'm sure they get a lot of those. But just as Catrice said before, they may get 5,000 responses for scholarships. What makes yours the one they're going to give the money to? And that's what we're looking at. So there are some common scholarship prompts. Sometimes when you're asked to write a specific scholarship, whether it's a foundation one or community-based one, we mentioned dogs before. Maybe there's something about, yourself. Tell me a little bit about you. Okay? Or how has sports impacted your life? Maybe you're looking for a sports scholarship of some sort. How do you contribute to your community? Okay? Those types of questions. You don't want to say, oh, I volunteer in my community, and leave it at that. You want to say, oh, I'm really interested in healthcare because I worked in the healthcare field volunteering, blah, 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 and I'm excited about doing this as a full-time career, and I need the money to pursue that. So they want you to be very specific and very detail-oriented so they know, oh, okay, this person's serious, and this is how it's really going to affect them personally. And that's what you want to do. You want to make it personal. So other ones are, how are you unique? How have you failed and how have you learned from it? So a lot of these prompts, and I don't need to go through the whole list. You can kind of see it for yourself. But basically, a lot of the prompts are going to provide you a jump start for thinking and brainstorming on how to get started with your essay. So let's talk about our essay timeline. We decide we're going to write an essay. We've already done the application. We've checked off the little boxes. So the first thing is get an early start. Read the prompts. Know what it is asking you to do. It wants you to write something, what makes you unique, or why do you want this scholarship for healthcare, whatever. And it has to be 250 words. And it must include whatever. So read those directions carefully. Read them more than one time. Print them off. Highlight those key terms, because those are the things that you're going to know and you want to elaborate on. And you want to make sure all of those things are in your final scholarship essay. You want to know your audience. Who are you writing to? Are you writing to a particular foundation person that has offered a foundational grant? Are you writing to a scholarship committee? Are you writing to a church committee, or the city of Westland who's giving one for the students who live there? Okay, so kind of know your audience. Again, read your prompt, be familiar with it. You want to then brainstorm your ideas. Take a piece of paper and write down all the things. I want a scholarship for healthcare because I'm this, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. I can do this with the money. I now have the money that I can purchase my books. So write it out. Kind of create your own outline. Tell a story. Again, make it personal. Make it personal about yourself. What makes you stand out? Again, it's not just, I want your money. Okay? You're unique. You've done all these things, but this money will allow you to take that step further. It will allow you to remain in college. It will allow you to take the classes, to purchase your books. So all kinds of things, but you want to tell that story and make it personal. One of the most important things is to double check your essay and edit it when you get done with it. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And also have a professional review it. So somebody in Learning Support Services, I'm an academic support coach for writing. My card's up here, we all have cards up here. So contact us. We'll be happy to get you started with the process, look at it along the way, or make sure that everything's included at the final wrap-up. So you want to put your best foot forward. It's not just like writing an essay for class. Oh, I'm writing about this topic and here's the information and I'm done. No, this is selling yourself to somebody else, letting them know why. So an easy outline is going to be just like with any essay. It's going to be broken up in 3 parts. You're going to have an introduction, your body, and your conclusion. Your introduction is going to grab their attention, okay? You want them to know that why you want it. Maybe a brief description. Hi, my name is whatever, and I'm here applying for this scholarship because I have always wanted to work in the healthcare field, and I see a huge need for it right now, and therefore I want to do it because I've done volunteer work, home health, whatever. So explain a little bit of your story. Go into it more into your body. Elaborate on your thesis. Why is it that you need this money? Now we're going to specifically give them those ideas that we wrote in our outline a little bit earlier. Your conclusion, again, is going to kind of summarize, what you've written. You're not going to say, oh, in my paper, I've written such and such. Okay, that's a given. We don't need to tell them that, right? Yeah. Okay. But it's going to mirror your experiences and beliefs. It's going to say, I have, throughout my life, gone into health, and I'm using healthcare today because I worked with a lady yesterday on one. So I worked in the healthcare field for such a long period of time, and this is important to me because I see the need now more than ever. People are getting out of it, people need to get into it, and I'm passionate about it. Again, the word passionate, all right? So you want to explain your passion, you want to explain why this is important to you, and you want to get that point across. Kind of ties it up in a neat bow, okay, is the way I like to put it. I'm going to tell you this information, this is what's important, then you're going to tell them the information, and then you say, I told you the information. Okay, so it kind of ties it up in a bow. You want to make sure it makes sense. When you're writing, you want to make sure that you use the present tense. You want to avoid just telling them, hey, I want to work in the medical field. Okay, so do 5,000 other people. All right. So you want to use action verbs. Be very concise. make a strong introduction, and have those logical transitions. Here's an example. It says, the highlighted words are those same keywords that you're going to have when you've written your essay prompt out and you've written your brainstorming ideas out. So here they've just kind of highlighted it for you. I must admit that it was somewhat by accident that I find myself driven towards assistive technology. I've always enjoyed interacting and helping people. So as you can see, those action words that they're throwing in, they've grabbed their attention. I must admit that it was somewhat by accident I find myself driven to this field. Okay, I want to read more. How were you driven towards this field? You've grabbed my attention. It's not just, hi, I'm Susie, I want your scholarship. Okay, so you grab their attention with the information, with the type of scholarship it is, and then you're going to focus it. Okay, as my knowledge grew, now you're explaining more things. This area of studies helped me understand and develop. So it goes on to highlight those nouns, those adjectives, very descriptive words and phrases that you want to make sure that you use when you're writing your essay. Again, why? It shows that it's professionally done. It shows that you know what you're talking about. It shows that you're not just writing to be writing, is what I call it. You want to let them know. You want to make sure you have your name, right? You want to have what you want. You want to make sure it also includes your goals and your objectives. You want to make sure that it has a reason why you need the scholarship. So the things that are written here, basically. For instance, it says, I have worked in several healthcare agencies. That's kind of weak. Okay, you don't want to write something like that. Stronger, I currently enjoy interacting with patients as a volunteer nurse's aide at a Flower Hospital and delivering food and Meals on Wheels. That says a whole lot more about you than, hey, I just like healthcare agencies. Okay, so again, you make it personal. You are honest in what you write. You are accurate in what you write. You are very open and giving in how you present your information, because you want people to understand and get a lot out of what you're saying. Okay. Again, your integrity needs to show through when you're writing these papers. When you're formatting your scholarship, you want to be aware of the word count. Again, remember I said, when you first look at it, you're going to see it says, here's the prompts. You're going to be writing about this. Your essay is going to be about 250 words. It must include these items. Okay? You've printed it, you've highlighted it, you've written it down somewhere. Pay attention to it. I don't mean get phobic about it. I don't mean check every 5 seconds. Oh my gosh, I've only got 200 words. Oh my gosh, I got whatever. I got to add more stuff. You don't want to go there. Okay? Anytime I tell students when you're writing, get it out of your head. Okay? You've done the research, this is research about yourself, obviously, for this case, but you've done that, you've written out what you want to do. Now, type out your information. Once you get it typed out, now look at your word count. Are you short? Are you long? Are you whatever? Because now is going to come the editing point. Okay? Don't be so phobic. People who say, oh my gosh, okay, I've got 300 words, I'm going to stop. Well, did you cover everything? Okay, did you come up with a conclusion? Did you ramble on and on? Could you have stopped sooner? Were you very detail-oriented? Or were you detailed but very specific at the same time? So be aware of your word count. Look at it after the fact. Don't constantly be looking at it because it's very distracting. Because now you're focusing on the words and not on the content, which is why you're doing it. You want to have a very business appropriate font. Always use something like Times New Roman. You don't want to use something that's really cool like Chiller. It's the cool font, but it's not very professional. Okay, So something like Times New Roman is really better to use. Make sure it's easy to read. 12-point font is usually normal size that you want to use. Anything larger than that is not necessary. Okay, anything smaller than that makes it difficult. So nice, easy of the road 12-point font. 1-inch margins on all sides, just like you would do for any essay. Okay, because you want it to look neat and compact when you're writing your paper. You want to double space everything. Sometimes space and a half if they specify that they want it done that way. So kind of pay attention again to what your prompts are, what the directions say. You should probably have a space between each paragraph. So you've got your introduction, space, body, space, conclusion. Okay, breaks it up nicely for them. You can have paragraph indents, but you don't have to. They can all be left aligned if you want to. That's entirely up to you. Either way is correct, unless it specifies differently. Okay. So now we're going to write our essay. Okay. Basically, again, we're going to follow our outline. You want to make sure that you cover all of your key ideas. The next thing you want to do is be concise and to the point. I'm kind of summarizing up some of the things I've already said, but you want to be concise and to the point. You want to explain, describe, justify, use those kind of words if you want to be very specific about the things that you've talked about. You want to double check your word count at this point. Make sure that you followed all your prompts. Use your voice. Talk like you're talking to the group. When I this, or I like this, or I whatever, because this is about you. Once you type up your scholarship draft, you want to take a break. And I always say that because if you go and look at something right away, you automatically read the way you thought you wrote it, and you find little words and you skip over them that you don't have them in there, or you assume, oh, but I meant an A, or I meant a the, and you little words get left out. So the best way to do it, or you end up reading and reading and reading without any punctuation, and your paragraph is this long, and you can't hold your breath any longer, you may need punctuation. So I always say read it, take a break, come back to it, read it out loud. That'll help you catch some of those punctuation things. Look at your essay with new eyes, okay? And by that I mean you haven't seen it, you've put it away a couple hours or a day or so. Remember, we started early. We're not waiting to the last minute to do this because our printer may not work, or our computer may be down, or we might not be able to send it on time, okay? So we want to make sure that we plan ahead, we do it, we have time to look at it, just like with any assignment, except this is giving you big bucks, okay? So you want to make sure that you donate your time and devote your time to doing that. So again, come back, look at it with new eyes. Proofreading and editing is one of the most important parts. Following the prompts, definitely you have to do that. But what the committee is looking for is, do you make sense? Do you have complete sentences? All right. Are the things spelled right? They look for spelling, punctuation, grammar mistakes, typos. Do not ever, ever, ever rely on spell check, because if it's a real word, it will show up as a real word. You might need meant from, and it'll show up form. It's a word, okay. And that's why you put your paper away. So you come back, and when you look at it, you go, that was wrong. Okay. So you can catch it. So it catches those typos. It catches repetitive terms. Maybe you, in your paper, in your essay, you say, I always do this, and I've really enjoyed it. And I've always worked at this healthcare center, and I really enjoyed working there. And I've always, let's find different words. Okay. We have synonyms, we have other word choices, we have other things to go from. So you want to make sure that some of those repetitive terms you don't have in your paper. Again, someone else look at your paper, whether it's a friend, a colleague, someone from Learning Support Services, academic success coach, a teacher, whoever. Have somebody else look it over. Because if it doesn't make sense to them, it won't make sense to the committee trying to give you the scholarship. So you want to make sure that if they have questions, you want to make sure they're addressed then. Instead of turning it in and then people looking at it and going, no, and putting it aside. Okay. So, and then you want to refine your final draft. Look at it, look at the comments, make sure that your ideas are making sense. Read it over multiple times. You've had it looked at, you've written it, you've read it out loud. I always say read it out loud slowly so you catch those little words that you miss. And so that's what you want to do. So your final draft, you incorporate the feedback, the suggestions that were asked or that you've talked about with somebody else. Some frequently asked questions, how long do they have to be? Well, most scholarships are about 250 to 500 words, depending. And again, that will be in your prompt, so you have to read what it says. So check those parameters on how the length should be. Do you have to have a title for your essay? Well, not necessarily. You can sometimes it makes it more memorable. If you are attaching a PDF or a file to turn in with some sort of a scholarship, then yes, you do need to have a title, and a catchy title would be best. You know, I Want Your Money is not a really good title, okay? You may want to say, healthcare money will benefit me in the future, or thank you for enabling me to go into the healthcare field, something. You want to grab their attention so they know what they have forward. You know, a title is, what do I have forward to reading? What can I look forward to reading about? Are page number required? No, page numbers are not required. Usually it's a short essay. 250 to 500 words is usually a page or two, so you don't need page numbers with it. Okay. Unless, again, it says so.